Hey, it's Terry Vanover. I want to welcome you here today. We are going to be talking about everything from how to let go with a partner that we love so dearly to cheating to what to do about a parent who's alienating you. So I want to just, welcome you today. I'm Terry Vanover. I'm a divorce strategist. I help you come through divorce without being legally, financially, and emotionally devastated. But just as importantly, I help you to heal from divorce so that you can transition confidently into that next phase of your life and find a partner who will love you for you and you can have a happy, healthy new relationship after all this is gone with yourself and with others. So we've got some great questions here today. Let me just start off by saying, though, we want to be really careful about the gender bias and being really careful about painting all women as, this and this and this and this. I saw a lot of just a lot of gender bias and a lot of generalizing. And I know it's really, really difficult when we've been hurt by a woman and we want to say all women do this and all women are doing that. So we just want to be really, really careful. I just want to caution you against some of those men's groups that are they tend to be anti-woman. I'm no more anti-man than I am, anti-woman. It's all about we're all individuals, and men have some men have their issues and some women have their issues, and it doesn't mean we have to paint a whole gender that way. So just want to caution you about that there's at least one woman, me, I love you, and I only want the best for you, and I want to help you through this. So know that not every woman, hates you or is out to get you or wants to, you've got mothers, you've got sisters, you've got daughters. So kind of remember that when you have a woman that's hurting you. And I'm not trying to minimize the pain. I really am not. I'm not saying that there are not destructive people out there that are toxic. I'm not minimizing that at all. But just be cautious. Know that there's plenty of women that are on your team and want only the best for you. So let's talk about how to let go when the other person left you. So that's a really, really hard one, because I think for a lot of people, when you're the one that's left behind, it feels particularly difficult. Although I will say, I work with people who initiate the divorce. It's really not any easier for them. Trust me on this. I know it feels that way. They may be further along in the journey in terms of getting closure and acceptance with it, but I don't think it's any easier if they're the ones that left. So the first thing that you need to do, I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but it really is about self-compassion and self-care at this time. This is an overwhelming time. You've heard me talk about that. Divorce is not a typical event that occurs in our life, and it's different from grief in that it's not just 5 stages of grief. There's 7, I'd argue 8, because the anxiety that comes along with it. That's one we've picked around as divorce professionals. Should we add anxiety to one of the stages of grief? So understand that, you've got to give yourself more self-compassion, more self-love, more self-care than you normally would. I really mean that. Whatever nurtures your soul, make sure you're doing that. Whatever rest you need, take care of that. Whatever you need. When I think of self-care, if you've been following me, I talk about the three prongs of the self-care. It's the mental, physical, and spiritual. You've got to be taking care of that. And make sure you have a plan. Have a plan for that. It shouldn't just be willy-nilly. Sit down, figure out, what do I need to get through this time? And again, self-compassion. And self-compassion, understand that what you're going through is pretty unbelievable. It's not just a divorce of your wife leaving you. Divorce impacts so many areas of your life, financially, socially. You're losing friends and family. Your marital relationship is being destroyed. And then you've got the loss of time with your kids and, the unknowns versus the knowns. It is a stressful time that's unbelievable. So lots of self-care and lots of self-compassion, and understand that you may not get the closure you're seeking. And I say this a lot in this group, right? You see people that like mistakenly think that, oh, once I get the divorce papers, like that piece of paper will give me the closure and I'll be able to move on and I'll be happy. Like as soon as it's done, I'm going to get that clear. And then they're kind of confused and bewildered when they like, oh God, I still feel like shit. Yeah, because you can't get closure from someone else. You've got to learn how to give yourself the closure and the acceptance. And, we're going to be talking about cheating today. And the truth is, I have people tell me, well, if only I knew why, then I could accept it. And chances are you probably do know why. You might be in denial about it. And you just are in denial and you don't want to accept it. And really, honestly, would there be any answer that would be good enough for you if she says, hey, I don't love you anymore, I want to move on with my life? Is that the closure you're seeking? I mean, chances are it's not. It's really not. So you have to learn to give yourself the closure and the acceptance of what has happened to you that you're looking for from her. I guarantee you, she told you, I don't love you, I want to move on, or I need something different, or this isn't working for me. So she's given you her answer. You just haven't accepted it. You haven't gotten closure for yourself. And for the person that posted this, that asked me this question, you mentioned something about a lack of self-esteem. And what I'm sensing is that really what's going on, there's a fear of rejection. There's a fear of abandonment. She's left you and now you don't know what to do. You are left devastated. You don't know what to do with these feelings of pain. They probably triggered some deep, deep, deep rooted stuff in you that you haven't resolved prior to the marriage. And then she's left that hole within you. And, we talked really deeply on this at our workshop. So we really got into, how to get the acceptance, how to get the closure. What does this fear of abandonment and fear of rejection come from, and what you can do about it? So I would really invite you to click on the link onto the workshop and listen to that, because, this is hard to answer in a 2-minute, 3-minute segment, but we dive deeply into this in the workshop and how to get closure, how to get past the abandonment, how to get past the rejection. So click on that. I think you'll find, even more tools and even more strategies to get through this. So let's talk about, I opened this video with gender bias, right? There were a lot of questions about like women cheat and women do this and women do that and malicious mother syndrome. I'm like, oh guys, come on. We've got to like dial it back here. Okay, men and women cheat. And there's various reasons for it. So a really good question is why? Why do people cheat? That's a great question. And I wish I could sum it up for you in this, 2-minute bit, but the truth is a very complex answer. And someone had mentioned about, you can't find happiness outside of yourself. And that is so true. That is so true. I preach this day in and day out. If you've heard my story, you know that I really struggled as a wife. I was very insecure. I was needy. I was controlling. I had a very traumatic childhood. We grew up very poor. My mom had very little education. She had me when she was really young, didn't even have a high school diploma. My alcoholic father, my biological father, left us when I was 3 or 4, I don't even remember it. And I was sexually molested when I was 7 years old. And so I had a lot of trauma, not just, and just the hardships of like kind of growing up and not having the security of a loving home. There was a lot of transitions and a lot of kind of chaos in my life growing up. And it led to my feelings of being really insecure, really needy as a wife. And my marriage fell apart after a few short years. And within a span of 4 months, I lost my health because I was hit by a van. I lost my home, so I became homeless. I lost all my financial credit, lost my marriage, and lost my mom, right? So talk about that time being the most, darkest time of my life. It really was. It was really devastating. And when I came through it, right, I looked back at that woman and said, who the hell was she? Like, who was she? Because I made every mistake that you can make during a divorce. And I became very passionate about helping other people know their options, tap into their best selves so that they don't make the mistakes that I made, right? That I see some of your ex-wives making, that I see some of you guys making, drawing this out, holding on to the anger, holding on to the pain, punishing your kids in the process of it. So I came through and I wanted to help other people, give them the tools, give them the strategies, give them some resources so that they could come through the divorce better and heal themselves from their childhood trauma so they don't end up repeating the same mistakes again. Because this is what I see. I see the nice guys who don't heal themselves that go right back too quickly into a relationship and end up repeating the same mistakes. Because here's the thing, this is a statistical fact. 70% of second marriages end in divorce. And look, if you're in the middle of it, I know you're like, I'm not ever getting married again, blah, blah, blah. You're saying that now. But it's human nature to want a companion, to want love, to share a life with someone else. I know that, right? I said that. I told my husband, how many years? No. So yes, we all want love. We all want a partner. We want someone to share our life. So maybe you're not at that point in your journey, but understand that you can heal yourself and find happiness again, and you can find the right partner. So it is important that you really take the time to figure out like what went wrong in my marriage. I call it doing an autopsy of the marriage. Like figure out what went wrong. What were the red flags you missed? Where didn't you show up in the relationship that you should have? Where were some places that you could have showed up more? And again, listen, this is not about blaming anyone. I'm not about blaming anyone. But I'll tell you, what's amazing though, is if you can learn things and learn from this process, you actually feel very empowered. You're no longer a victim anymore. You feel very empowered. So that's a little bit about my story and how I came to do this, right? So why do people cheat? Okay. So this is part of it. And the reason kind of why I went into my story is because, yeah, I do believe that many people do have unhealed parts of themselves, and they're going outside of themselves looking for that validation, looking for that attention, looking for that affection. And so they go outside of the marriage for that. And I think you're right. We do need to look within ourselves for our own happiness. When people come to me, there's actually a large number of people that come to me and they're struggling in their marriage and they're contemplating divorce. And what I do with them is before they make a decision, I say, let's work on you. Let's make sure that there isn't some unhealed part of you that's seeking something before you leave this marriage and say, hey, this marriage isn't giving me what I need, isn't doing this, isn't doing this. So let's make sure that you aren't seeing things through a trauma-filled filter, and make sure that you understand that you're seeing this marriage for what it is, and maybe it is or isn't meeting your needs. But let's make sure that you're the best version of yourself to see if this marriage can work. So sometimes people do need to work on themselves, and they're looking for the marriage to make them happy. And that's never going to happen. No one can ever make you happy, right? But in some circumstances, people cheat because, I mean, this is true. Like there's sexless marriages. They're not getting their intimacy needs met. They're not getting the marriage is not meeting their basic needs. And sometimes people go outside of the marriage. I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's right. But you asked, why do people do it? So it's about, looking at it from that aspect, that there's no simple answer, really, truly. And so the marriage itself might not be meeting some basic emotional needs, and might not be meeting some physical needs for the partner. So they go outside of the marriage. And they may feel like, well, I can't leave this partner for whatever reason, but I need this, this, and this. So they stay in it to like support the kids or support the partner, but they need this other thing. So someone had asked about, again, someone kind of painted the picture of women. Why do women have to have an emotional affair? And that's really not true. There really is not true. It's not true that both women and men have emotional affairs and physical affairs. And so it's really important to understand that it happens on both sides. Now, I did do a little bit of research on this because I thought this was an interesting topic, and the Evolutionary Behavioral Science Institute had mentioned about forgiving the affairs, because I believe you were kind of alluding to, is it possible to get past the affair? So here's what they say. They said that women tend to struggle with forgiving their partners if their partners have had emotional connection, okay? And men tend to struggle. Again, we're generalizing, and so I'm blanketing that. It's not always true for all men and women, but men in general will struggle more so with forgiving their partner if their partner has had a physical relationship with someone outside the marriage. So how do you rebuild, right? It takes a lot to rebuild that trust. So the key is to hopefully not have it happen in the first place. So if you're struggling in the marriage, you got to reach out to me, right? So we can look at that. We can figure out what's going on. But secondly, trust is really, really hard to build, but very, very easy to destroy, regardless of whether it's a physical relationship outside the marriage or an emotional relationship. So it's really important that you have boundaries in your marriage, and that you seek help as soon as you suspect, something's going on. And, we talked about this at the workshop. We talked about betrayal trauma and how difficult that is to overcome. One of the hardest pieces of that is the deception. And then you look back and you realize, oh, that was a deception. And then you look back at another part of your life, and that was a deception. So betrayal trauma, when you do have a partner that has cheated on you, is particularly difficult, because it's not only the loss of what your future, right? It's the loss of what you thought you had. You're grieving, oh, I thought we had this. And then to turn out, it wasn't this at all. She was out doing this, this, and this. So it's like, it makes your head spin. So the first step in that, if you have suffered betrayal trauma, and I talked about a video on this last week, and it's not easy. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not going to pretend it's easy. But the first step begins with looking at the suffering of the other person. And I know for a lot of you, you're like, hell no, you're very resistant to that. So if you're resistant to it, that's what you need to do. That's where the healing is. And I've been there. I've experienced this. I understand this on a real cellular level, y'all. And I will tell you that actually, that was one of the pieces that helped me forgive the most, and continues to help me, because this is a process, right? This forgiveness is a process. It's an ongoing process. When I could look back and see that person's pain and find just a little bit of compassion, that the person that hurt me had mental health issues, and I see that person was suffering, and they were really looking for acceptance and validation, and they hurt me in the process, and they hurt my family in the process. But I can see okay, I see that person's pain. I see that person suffering. They just wanted acceptance. And it helps me to kind of lessen my anger and find my heart opens just a smidge, just a smidge. It starts with like a little step, and then eventually you can open your heart to full on forgiveness, but it starts with just a little bit, just a little bit. So I know it's not easy, only for a moment, only for a moment. And then the moment gets a little bigger and a little bigger. And I know it's not easy. Again, I know it's not easy. And that pain, that anger, that bitterness, though, you've got to let that go. So someone had mentioned about that, like, well, how am I hurting my children by being angry at my cheating ex-wife? You are hurting your children because energetically, when you are holding all that toxic emotion in your heart, you're hurting your children. You're keeping them from you. You're keeping them away from you because they sense that pain. They sense that anger. Trust me. They're like, ooh, daddy's anger, you know, and they just will energetically, you know, I saw it in my own life. They will stay away. And here's the other thing, though. Not only are you energetically pushing your children away, but you're keeping that other person close to you. When I was so angry and like raging at that person who hurt me and hurt my kids, y'all, the thing is like I was emotionally entangled with that person. Instead of being distant from them, right? Even talking about it, you can feel it. You can feel that energy. It was keeping me emotionally entangled with them, which is what I didn't want. I wanted that person out of my life. I wanted to let go. So if you can understand that, like holding on to that anger and holding on to that pain and holding on to that rage is keeping you close to that person, and letting them go will give you that energetic free space and open your heart, and your kids will be, they'll sense your open heart and they'll sense your loving and all that stuff. So it really is impactful. So check out the workshop because we go into that, like how to open your heart and how to overcome betrayal trauma and how it might even link back to something else you've experienced. So if you haven't, if you didn't join us this weekend live, you can still get the replay of the workshop. So I would invite you to watch that. And someone had asked me about malicious mother syndrome. Okay. Again, this is a totally sexist, outdated, misogynistic term. I looked at it, I was like, what is this? From the 50s. Is there parental alienation that occurs during divorce? Absolutely. Is it wrong? Absolutely. And there are some things that, our courts have in place so that parents are not pitting their children against the other parent. So, that is inherent in the legal system, that neither parent will discourage a relationship with the other parent. So, I am not for any parent saying bad things. And I've called people out myself. I have done it and said, yeah, what you're doing is wrong. And, and I will tell you this, let me tell you, it does come back to bite them. I'm going to give you an example in a minute because I just want to caution you. I know some of you men are out there looking at some of the websites and stuff. I'm seeing what you're posting. I'm getting a little concerned because they're very anti-woman and very, labeling. I want to caution you against labeling people. Even I don't label people, right? Because I want you to think about the long-term goal here. And if you are filtering everything through this very specific filter, and you are labeling your ex-wife as whatever the syndrome is, which isn't even a syndrome. It's not even a thing. I'm sure you got it off a very negative website that is very anti-woman. If you're labeling and you are proceeding in that direction, this you'll reap what you sow. I would really invite you to think about the long-term goal here, which is to co-parent, respect in a respectful manner together. You need to think about the goal of co-parenting and developing a constructive relationship by washing yourself in some of this negativity and viewing things through that lens. You may inadvertently be contributing to it. And listen, I help my clients all the time handle high conflict exes. There's no doubt about it that there are some people that are not thinking clearly, that are making huge mistakes in the divorce and using their kids in the process. And I'm not condoning that, but I tell you, I work with clients and give them tools how to avoid that, how to effectively work with those kinds of people, how to avoid the mistakes that contributes and makes the situation worse, and what you can do to make the situation better. There are definitely some things that you can do, and maybe you're doing, you're not even aware that you're doing, that make the situation worse. And like I said, this stuff does come back to haunt these people. I spoke to this woman a couple of years ago, and her, just the nastiness. I said, look, you've got to stop this. You're hurting your kids. And they were teens at the time. And this is inappropriate. They're on her team now, right? At the time. And she was saying this in front of them. And I was like, this is not appropriate. This is not okay. We're not doing this. I said, you're just hurting yourself and you're hurting your kids, and this will come back to bite you. And lo and behold, when you know, her kids are no longer talking to her. So just because like the kids are on their side at that time doesn't mean that later they don't see what's going on and they don't want to be a part of it. What happened was these kids decided, I don't want to be a part of this toxic person who's just spewing stuff all over her cheating ex. People like, I don't want to be a part of that. So what she should have done is like worked on moving forward, worked on letting go, worked on not being angry, let the girls have their relationship with their father, let her have her relationship with her, like move on, right? But she didn't do that. And not only is she's like divorced and had a bad divorce, but like lost her kids in the process. So holding on to that really can hurt you. And just because, it might be working in the moment, that person may be, getting the kids on the side at that time, doesn't mean that in the long goal, because what we find that is in the long term, kids are more resilient than we think, they're smarter than we think, and they see the person for who they are. So it's really important that you be your best and you not badmouth the parent. Don't be using terms like that. Like it can hurt you. So you want to just be thinking about being positive, and you want a constructive relationship. And courts don't buy into parents pitting the kids against each other anyway. You want to come from this from like a very calm, rational demeanor. And divorce professionals see right through that. Trust me, we see right through people who are using kids against their exes. Trust me, I've spoken to in another situation, spoken to a mother and a father. And it was very clear. The one person was accusing the other of being a narcissist, and it was very clear who was the narcissist in this situation, and that person lost custody of their kid. So you have to just be very careful. Whereas the other person, I have to say, he was so calm, so like, he just like, look, I just want my kids to have a relationship with their mom. She keeps destroying that relationship. I'm doing everything I can to foster a positive relationship. And it really was. She was sabotaging herself. So you just have to keep positive and present that like, matter of fact, positive face on this. Like, because if you're taking your children away from their mom, you're hurting them. And he recognized that. He wanted her to get better. He wanted his children to have a relationship, but she was the one that's destroying that. So you don't want to look like in any capacity, you're impeding a relationship with their mother. So one of the things that we talked about in the workshop is how to manage stress, how to manage dealing with a high conflict person. Like, what do you do when you've got someone that's making up lies and keep trying to keep the kids from you and everything like that? Like, that's one of the things that we talk about in the workshop. And the first step is, look, you have to take care of you and you have to manage yourself. Because if you start letting that person get to you and you start saying the wrong things, it'll come back to haunt you. Because this guy, he had a really good, sense about him. He was thinking long-term. I just want my children to have a relationship with their mom. I'm not trying to infringe on that. I'm not you know, wasn't bad mouthing her. You could tell it was a genuine thing, and he had moved past the divorce and she hadn't. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're moving past this. And so, you know, so if you haven't checked out the workshop, I want you to check it out because it addresses how to manage the stress, how to deal with the high conflict ex. Like we talked about that. One of the people had an ex that she was still super mad at after 4 years. And it's like, okay, let's let this go. Like, it's time to move on. 4 years is a long time, you know? So if you haven't checked out the workshop, you'll really get a benefit out of like seeing how to let go, how to move past the anger, how to not let the stress of dealing with a high conflict pull you into the drama and make you look bad. So, all right, so we're gonna put the link in our Facebook right below this video. And I'm going to talk to you, let's see, when the next Wednesday. In the meantime, if you have questions, if you need anything, y'all know where to find me, right? And again, you've got, if nothing else, you've got like one woman that loves you and cares about you, and I'm on your team. So let's remember that, right? Okay. All right, y'all have a great day. Have a great weekend. Reach out to me. Any questions, anything you need. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.